So I'm Lindy Holmes. I am a history major here and a public history minor.
I'm Jared Jones. I'm a history major here and a public history minor, and probably a political science minor in the near future.
Very grateful to have you here.
It's extremely grateful.
So if you could just, what's your name and where are you from?
Okay, my name is Raymond Silvey, and I'm from Cuyahoga Falls originally, Ohio, and now I live in Dublin, Ohio.
How long were you in the National Guard for?
Until I was discharged, you mean?
Yeah, until you were discharged, yes. 5
years and 3 months.
And what capacity did you serve in? What did you do?
I was a gunner on a 4.2 mortar. That's what I did. My hearing is not happy about that. Permanent tendinitis.
What led you to join the National Guard in the first place?
Vietnam, the draft. And so I got into the Guard because I didn't want to go to Vietnam. And then I got number 289 and they would have never drafted me. I was already in.
So, I guess this is probably we can start talking about your specific story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you view your time? And how do you view your time now in the National Guard, looking back?
I'm not too sure how to answer that question. When I view my time in the Guard, the only thing that I really think about is Kent State, because the rest of it was not worth talking about. It was just, I have memories of, the Akron riots, being on duty there, 2 or 3 times, riding on fire trucks, being stoned by all the people lining the streets. I remember one time they had set fire to a gas station, grocery store. And there was, 5 to 1,000 people yelling and screaming. And all there were the Guardsmen, and we had weapons, but we didn't load them. No, we did load them, that's right, they were loaded. But just standing, trying to hold, like policemen would, crowds back. And I can remember one time a kid was waving a razor blade back and forth at this one guy in my company and yelling about what he was going to do to his family. And and this guy, I saw him take a safety off. He was that close to shooting him. And I relieved him. I have memories like that kind of stuff. But Kent State's what I remember the most.
So how was it that you were deployed to Kent, Ohio in May of 1970?
Well, we had just spent 2 weeks living at the Akron Rubber Bowl. I think it was the Rubber Bowl. Fighting the Teamsters strike, guarding bridges and things. And one evening, we were close to going home. One evening, though, they came and made us all get on trucks, and we went to Kent State. And we didn't know anything because we were in the Rubber Bowl. Back then, people didn't have smartphones. We didn't know what was going on in the world for 2 weeks. And we come rolling into Kent State, and I can remember it was like, I thought I was in Vietnam or something. There were military checkpoints all over the place, military police driving around, searchlights. It was really bizarre. I went to college there, Anyway, that's how it started.
So, what do you remember from May 4th?
What I remember, I wasn't on the commons. All right, I was in the gym. I was outside the gym. So there's a little rise right there. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of Kent State, but there's a little rise, and then there's the gym.
Right.
There's a memorial building there now or something, but that wasn't there then, I don't think. But we were just standing around outside, and this was maybe the second or third day that we were there. I can't even remember that. Well, I just remember the shots. We heard it. We knew. what that was. And then the students coming back, crying and yelling and stuff, walking past the gym. And I remember from some deep, deep place inside of me, this voice saying, this is wrong. This shouldn't happen. And I knew with a certainty I'd never known in my life before that all the things that my parents had taught me, all the things my government was saying, all the things my religion was saying, all the things that I had been taught so far, they were wrong. I mean, for this to happen, people did not know what they were doing. I mean, this is a fundamental thing. This was not an intellectual thing. This was from deep inside of me. And I mean, I was profoundly affected. And I basically threw down my rifle and refused to serve again. And that's just started a journey for me, trying to find answers to what the heck was going on. Up till that point, I'd just been a pretty happy-go-lucky guy, you know what I mean? I just wandering along, but now I really wanted to know what was going on in life. So I ended up applying for a conscientious objector discharge. And that went over real well with my commanders and stuff. I mean, I had a general slam me up against the wall and just scream and yell at me once. I just remember that. But they denied it, and I ended up going to federal court and forcing them to, which they did reluctantly after a while. So that was my story as far as that affair. That night, I guess I should say this one there was another guy in my unit, Ken Reese. I don't imagine it matters now, but he turned me on to my first joint that night. And we walked outside of town, and I remember I had something to eat at a diner, and I just remember laughing my head off. I mean, in 1 minute I was in the depths of sorrow and, quandary and just not knowing what's going on, and the next minute, a few hours later, I'm laughing my head off at everything. So that was that was quite a change too.
So you mentioned the uplift of a mood with your fellow servicemen. At any point did you realize that any of the other men in your unit felt the same way as you?
Well, Ken Reese did. I knew that, but I don't know about anybody else.
So you threw down your gun right there in camp, right?
Yeah. But I had to pick it back up.
But
people got upset about that.
But like they knew right from there.
Well, I imagine everybody was going through every kind of thing. So I mean, I don't know that they paid particular attention to me at that point.
Right.
They had bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Bigger problems to deal with.
So did the National Guard issue any instructions or orders to the guardsmen who'd been on campus in the days afterward?
Not that I remember. When you're in the National Guard, it's not a full-time thing, so you show up once a month for a weekend. And after that, it was probably back to that pattern again. So, and I can't remember exactly it probably took me a while to figure out that you could apply for a conscientious, and it certainly took me a long while to write it because I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never thought about these things before. I mean, I had my religion and that was it as far as that stuff, as far as killing people goes. So it took me a lot of thought and whatever just to even fill out the conscientious objector discharge application.
The years following the Kent State shootings, how do you feel you were treated both personally and professionally, if at all?
You mean as far as being in the Guard? Oh, well, I mean, I had a job. I worked for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. And I think I got lots of support from people I worked with, and even my bosses. Not, I wouldn't know about up top, but, you know. Really, I think there was a lot of empathy. As far as in the unit, no. Once I applied for conscientious objector discharge, and I was getting, you know, there were articles in the paper and stuff, which they didn't appreciate. I ended up in a relationship with a reporter from the Plain Dealer. So that was, so I did run into a lot of trouble with commanders and stuff. Yeah. And they demoted me as far as they could. And I was only allowed to drive Jeeps and things like that. I wasn't allowed to do anything else.
As a follow-up to that, what was just at the time, what was the public's reaction to what had happened at Kent State, like in the weeks and months after it had happened? Just from your perspective, like what you saw.
Well, I ended up living in a house with one of the Kent 25 and a couple other Kent State students out in Brimfield, which is south of Kent. So, I mean, I was kind of out of touch with populace in general. I became a draft resistance facilitator. I talked with lots of people that wanted to avoid the draft and told them how to go to Canada and what they could do, and stuff like that. My dad was a conservative Republican, so but he loved me. You know, so that really shocked me that he supported me, whatever I wanted to do.
Have your feelings changed at all over the years about the shootings?
No. No, matter of fact, that understanding that people don't know what they're doing is even worse today. Obviously, my government. I'm sorry, religions. No, people are more lost today than they were then. I'm sorry to say, it's not looking good. But I spent, I did a lot of things from that point on, looking for answers. And the answer found me. Or I found it. As Alice says, I don't think it really matters. So I have an understanding now about what this life is and why it's given and what the possibilities are. And people aren't getting it. So I guess that's even why I wanted to come to this. I just wanted to say that out of such traumatic horror, there was still hope. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I think a lot of people had their life redirected by that event. Hopefully, I think so. I lived with the Kent 25. I know those kids, their life changed. So, and I kind of just, because I've talked to people who were there over the years, and I never hear anything positive. You know, it's always bad. And I'm sorry, for me, it changed my life for the better.
So any of the Guardsmen that you served with, Are you still in contact with him?
No. Like I say, I moved out to Colorado, Wyoming. I lost trip. I didn't keep in touch. And the only one that was even talked to me was Kenny. And I don't know where he is. I'd love to know, but I don't know.
How often have others, such as historians and reporters, for example, or maybe tried to reach out to you over the years?
Never.
Never.
But then I lived out west, so maybe.
In the because you said that there were articles in like the local newspapers. Did they interview you for those, or did they just write them without?
No,
interviewing?
I was interviewed.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the day.
But nothing since then until
Until today.
Have you ever returned to Kent State or the campus at all?
Didn't have reason to. Not really. I'm not too much into nostalgia.
So, as far as the narrative of the shooting and what happened, how has that changed from when it happened in 1970 to now? Like in your mind, how has it changed?
I don't think it has. I mean, I'm no expert, but it's obvious to me from all the different things that we did as members of the Guard back then, the riots and the strikes and whatnot. We're not trained back then as policemen. I mean, even today, the police don't show too much restraint, but they're trained to. Guardsmen aren't. They're trained to kill people. So you're putting them in situations which really should be done by police, and they have no training. So, it's understandable what happened. Those are guys who they don't want to put their lives on the line. They got families and stuff. I mean, and so they feel threatened. I'm sure that's what it was. I never talked to any of them, but I'm sure that they felt threatened. Somebody freaked. That's the way it happens, right?
Do you have any very vivid memories? Like, what's your most vivid memory from those days?
Just the feeling I had. I mean, this place inside, I hope you all hear it in your lives sometime. It's you at your core. It's just so deep. And that, I've heard that place many times since, because I've trained myself to listen to it. A lot of deep beauty there, a lot of love.
Is that voice inside kind of like what has helped you cope through this entire situation throughout your life?
Yep. More than that, more than cope. I was just on the way here, I was listening to CCR, some old Creedence, and Bob Seger, and just the song about I'm running against the wind. I remember as I was listening to that, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm not running against the wind anymore. I'm just floating along with it. That's really how it feels in my life now. Back then, I was running against the wind. Yeah.
So you went in front of, so for your conscientious objector status, you went in front of an Army review board. Like, what was the difference in your mind between, trying to get the conscientious objector status from the Army versus taking it to a federal court? So you went in front of, so for your conscientious objector status, you went in front of an Army review board. Like, what was the difference in your mind between, trying to get the conscientious objector status from the Army versus taking it to a federal court?
Oh, well, the difference was the Army didn't want to do it. And the federal court, by following the letter of the law, they had to grant the discharge. Though I'm not aware of all the legalities of everything, it's beyond me at this point. I know it was the ACLU that volunteered to help me get that discharge. Yeah, I remember Ben Scher was the lawyer.
So the ACLU provided you with a
Lawyer.
Okay.
At the time from when you threw down your rifle, were you treated any differently with your fellow men from that night on?
Well, at some point I was. I don't remember specifics, Like I say, I mean, there were some guys, I'm sure, that were sympathetic. But by and large, no. You don't go against the military. It's my country, right or wrong, and that's programmed into you. And most of the guys there are pretty strong patriots, and so somebody who is saying that killing people is wrong kind of goes against their grain. I had one interesting thing. I don't know if it should go on the record, but I remember when I had to go to another one of those summer 2-week things, and we did that up in Grayling, Michigan. And we were on maneuvers, and all I was allowed to do was drive the Jeep, so I was driving the captain. And we're moving through this forest, which had been logged, maybe 50 years ago. So there was a lot of down timber. And there was this one, and it doesn't really look like it because it's so overgrown with green stuff and vines and stuff. And there was this one pile, and the captain wanted me to go over it. And I started to, take this Jeep over it. And I stopped and I said, this is not a good idea. And he really just, laid it on me and told me to keep going. And so I kept going, and we got up to the top of this pile of logs, and the Jeep started going down, and the log went straight through the radiator. And so the Jeep was pinned in the air with this log right through the radiator. And I just remember thinking that was really funny, but this captain was bent out of shape by that.
You mentioned earlier, you said you had a general throw you up against the wall.
Yeah, well, I mean, he didn't hurt me, but he wanted to express his anger.
How'd that whole scenario come about?
See, I mean, for me, it was okay. I mean, I knew it was, because I had this understanding. I still do, and so I was okay. I mean, I could handle it. It was the general that wasn't okay.
The only other question that I wanted to ask is, because you said that you went out west. Yeah. After that, how were you treated differently from being in Ohio to going out west?
No, but back then, I mean, everybody knew about it. It was, in the hippie movement, everybody knew. In Fort Dead, Ohio, it was a pretty popular song in them days.
Right.
Yeah. But, and I don't think I told everyone. I didn't go around announcing it and stuff.
Right.
So.
Do you feel that if you were to announce your place in that whole situation, that people would have treated you any different?
Some would and some wouldn't, right? Yeah.
Do you have anything further you'd like to add to this? Any more of your story?
Not on the record.